Hi Capricorn, welcome to your December 2019 Astro Update. It's Raina here, and so here we are wrapping up the year of 2019. How has it been for you, Capricorn? Have you been having a good year, kind of in between, or has it been a challenging year for you? Certainly, with the eclipses occurring in your sign as well as your opposite sign, Cancer, there may have been a lot of personal changes with yourself and in significant relationships. And this will continue because there's going to be an eclipse in December in your sign, solar eclipse. So that will be really great. And that could be setting the stage for new beginnings on the personal front in 2020 for you as we enter the new year. So going through some of these transits, one thing to note is that all the planets are direct in December, except for Uranus, which is an outer planet, and that will go direct during the sun in Capricorn in January, when the sun is still in Capricorn. So during this whole reign of the sun being in your sign, all the planets will eventually be direct. But December is a really good start because we did have a Mercury retrograde that lasted a good portion of Scorpio. Boy, am I glad that's over with. That was really weird for me, but I don't know about you. And actually, as I record this, it's after Mercury has gone direct at the end of this month of November that I'm recording, and still Mercury is in its shadow and the aftermath of some tech issues that have been ironed out. So Mercury will go out of its shadow around the 8th of December. So that's just technically where it goes into a degree higher than when it retrograded. And in any case, the sun is going to be in Sag until the 21st when we have the solstice. Northern hemisphere, the winter, southern, the summer. And this is a power period. This is when the sun goes into cardinal signs. In the case of December, into the sign of Capricorn. So this is when you have your solar return. Officially, your birthday is your solar return, but the general sun going into Capricorn on the 21st this year. And but until that time, we have the sun in Sag, which is a sign right before you, so the sun is going to be in the 12th house. This will give you a contemplative kind of a mindset. Well, not just, let's see, Mercury is going into that sector on the 9th. And of course, it goes without saying that this is a general reading. So the actual timing for each of your individual charts will vary according to your personal information. So really, the sun going into the 12th house may make you even a little bit less sociable. You may feel like a bit of a monk for a while. The month before our solar return, there can be a lot of inner work happening, even if you're not trying to make it happen. Again, as I record this for my solar chart, this is happening with me because I'm a Sagittarian and the sun is still in Scorpio. And maybe it's going into Sagittarius today, but still. It's one of those things where if you play your cards right, you can really, especially since you're a sign that begins in December, kind of look at your year in review and be able to discern how you want to proceed in 2020, especially since you're going to have this solar eclipse where you can plant a lot of new seeds, or actually with a solar eclipse, a lot of things can just come about regardless of whether you planned for them or not. A lot of change, a lot of opportunities. But it's always good to have that sense of vision, I would think, not just kind of leave it to chance. So the other news that you should embrace wholeheartedly is that on December 2nd, Jupiter goes into your sign. So that alone is a wonderful piece of astro news, Capricorn. But that's kind of like the cherry on top because, like I said, you have the solar eclipse happening around Christmas time. So Jupiter in your sign can be something that feels very lucky for you. You may feel more positive than you have felt in years because, suffice it to say, with a long-term Pluto in Capricorn transit, with Saturn, your ruler, being in Capricorn for the last couple of years, and with the South Node being in Capricorn, that those three transits put together may have really tested you in 2019 because they were all there together. And you may have felt like it was one thing after the other, or simply that a situation that you've been trying to kind of remedy seems to be persisting. Jupiter can give you more opportunities to deal with any situation that arises. And if you have felt kind of personally held back, especially since Saturn in the first house, it may almost force you to kind of pare down your life to some degree so that you can focus on certain things to kind of set you up for the future. And that requires focus, that requires discipline. And for instance, when you have Jupiter in the first house, you may be like more inclined to be in a celebratory mood than in a mood of organizing and things like that, and putting your nose to the grindstone. So I think that helps to loosen things up a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with balance and even optimism to kind of buoy you into more of a positive mindset, a positive influence, and can-do type of a mentality, because with Capricorn, there can be sometimes pessimism of like, that's not viable, that's not practical, that's not reasonable to do this or that. And, I am one of those people that I think pragmatism is absolutely essential. You can't just have blind optimism. And that's why they call it blind, because it's like it's not really seeing the truth of the situation. I think that pragmatism is awesome and necessary. But obviously, anything taken to excess can lead to perhaps keeping yourself down unnecessarily and, not going for what you should go for, to kind of reach out more, kind of go out of your comfort zone, what have you. Mercury goes into Sag on the 9th, out of its shadow on the 8th, and this is in that 12th house. This can be like, when I talked about the mentality, the pragmatism, Mercury in the 12th is not about pragmatism. It's much more abstract. It's much more spiritual. It's great for meditation, not so hot for communicating clearly. The mind can be kind of convoluted with Mercury in the 12th house. There may be vague anxieties that you can easily, I think, conquer if you choose to approach this with the intention of, embracing the idea of meditation, because when I think of meditation, I think of Mercury. I think of conquering the mind. The mind has its place. The 12th house is no place for the mind. The first house, when Mercury goes into your first house at the end of the month, that will be a time when you will feel more at home and aligned with certain ideas and concepts, because it will be in conjunction with your sun sign and yada yada. And even Mercury and Jupiter will be there as well. I'll get to that all in a second, but just saying that the idea of, it's interesting, in Buddhism they talk about mindfulness, and that means being full of intention, where the way that you live life, where you're conscious, you're going through life in a conscious way. The 12th house is actually the unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind. In other words, the workings of the mind that are not known to the self in their day-to-day actions, in the person's day-to-day actions. And sometimes this is what therapy is, psychotherapy, when you're on the couch and the psychiatrist or the psychologist is trying to ferret out some of your deeper inner, your inner workings through deep analysis. But the conscious mind is not aware of these things, and there's a reason for that. There's a very good reason for that. It helps you to function when you can't make sense of something. And this is one of the reasons why we never reject coping mechanisms, because they serve a purpose. We understand them and then we transcend them. This is actually a great practice of Mercury in the 12th house, and the Sun in the 12th house actually, where you look at the ideas that you hold, Capricorn, that hold you back. I think of the Eight of Swords in the Tarot. And think about those things, because the 12th house is a house of self-undoing. And, I'm sure there's a lot of astrologers out here that don't really, wouldn't really spend as much time as I am on Mercury and the Sun in the 12th house. But I feel like this is a key to a lot, because you are going to experience change with the solar eclipse, like it or not. But if you don't honor that which is in your psyche at a deep level, you will sabotage yourself. Now, Capricorns are naturally inclinated to the career sector, because you rule that area. However, in your personal life, that might be the area of challenge for you, of relationships. You may be much more at home in the workplace, and some of you are workaholics, and that's how you deal with uncomfortable feelings, is that you just kind of take action. And I personally feel that being a workaholic is a lot better than being an alcoholic, because there's at least something productive occurring and you're not destroying your mind. But you can, impact relationships in a negative way if you are too involved in one area of life. Obviously, you're neglecting that other area, the personal area. So look at those things. Look at them now, even before this is happening, if you're listening in November. But these things will come up in one way or the other, perhaps as themes, which is how I love to characterize transits, rather than saying predictions. This is going to happen to you at this time, saying, is this a trend for you? Do you notice this now? Because even in November, you will have the Sun going into that 12th house, and you may just naturally find that every year when the Sun goes into Sagittarius, you kind of hunker down. You kind of are not necessarily wanting to go to all these Christmas shindigs, that you'd rather spend time alone and you don't know why, and you feel like you're kind of an ogre or something. No, maybe it's that you have a certain influence, a cosmic influence that actually helps you, that's actually good for you. So in any case, the bottom line is that Mercury is your consciousness. And so from the 9th onward, and I'm talking about in the mundane sense, we have the spiritual consciousness, but we also have the worldly mind that's connected to our higher mind. And that is how we function in the world. And if you find that you are feeling a little bit confused even with Mercury in the 12th, that's, this too shall pass. But it can be very psychic, for sure, with Mercury in the 12th. Now, this is very interesting. We have a full moon at 19 degrees of Gemini on either the 11th or 12th of December, wherever you live in the world. What is super cool for those people on the East Coast in the United States who are, well, you don't have to be on the East Coast, in the Eastern time zone. So, I think even parts of Michigan are in the Eastern time zone, if I'm not mistaken. But you're going to have it on the 12th, and it's going to be at 12:12 a.m. I wish I was experiencing that, because it's going to be 12:12 at 12:12 a.m. And if you remember back in 2012, the Mayan prophecy, and it was like 12:12:12 or 12:12:21, those interchangeable 1-2 numbers. This is kind of a similar thing. So, and also I wanted to note that the number 19 reduces to a 1, which is the number of kind of new beginnings. But if you just, when we look at double digits, numerologically, and we, kind of analyze the essence of each number, the 1 represents new beginnings and the 9 are endings. And so the number 19 is really like a beginning and an ending at the same time, and it reduces to a 1. And also, of course, full moons can bring things to culmination. And for you, Gemini is your 6th house of work. So because of this, there may be something connected to work matters. You may get a promotion. Full moon, you've gone as far as you can go in your current role. So you might get a promotion at your job. You may get some kind of, notice about something work-related. I don't want to say a pink slip, but full moons can bring endings for some people. Here's the deal. This is people, it's funny because people sometimes are very concerned about losing their job. As far as I'm concerned, the more that you worry about something like that, the more you are controlled by life. If you are the kind of person, Capricorn, that is fearless in that regard, where you know that the universe is supporting you at, every step of the way, that you're going to be way better off. And that's something you can cultivate. Obviously you can't snap your fingers and do it, but you can cultivate it, and you can set that intention maybe in 2020 if you, do see yourself as fear-based. Because I notice on the job, when I was working, that permeated a lot of the interactions and the behaviors in the workplace that were, I would call, dysfunctional, because people who are, they betrayed their coworkers, they're in that survival consciousness where they think that they have to maybe step on some people to get ahead, whatever it takes, because it's the survival of the fittest. that's kind of a lack consciousness. No, that's totally a lack consciousness. You don't have to be. So, I don't like to even say things like, oh, that could be like you getting your pink slip, because that's an unpleasant thought that could trigger people, and I don't like to be negative. But the thing is, I would just say 2 points. One is that there's nothing to be afraid of. And two, that could be the best thing that ever happened to you. The universe may actually be conspiring on your behalf, or I think it is conspiring, if there's anything that happens like this. But you may decide to quit your job. And I also believe that things don't typically come out of the blue. There's usually something that, either that the company isn't doing well, or that there is some kind of merger, what have you, and so these things would happen, or you're having clashes, ego clashes, what have you. So these things, so there might be some kind of something that happens along those lines, or it can simply be that you discover something about a coworker. Maybe you find out that somebody has been pretty, negative towards you behind your back, or, trying to plot against you. Who knows? Full moons can bring awareness. Like I said, it could even be like a promotion. And then on the 20th, we have Venus going into Aquarius. And for you, Aquarius is a sign that comes after you. So this means that for the first 3 weeks of the month, Venus is in your sign. Venus in your sign makes you irresistible to other people, and this can be very good for anything that you're trying to promote, Capricorn, whether you're looking for love and you love that, or you want that kind of attractive quality, not, necessarily good looking, but charismatic, or, just people feeling drawn to you. This is the time for that. And looking for a job, you may really come across in the best way possible at this time. And then Venus goes into the house that it rules, the second house. So the better it gets, the better it gets. And in the second house, Venus can attract money to you. I don't, even though this is supposed to be the money that you earn, I keep it open because of my own experiences with transits in this house. So money, you attracting money, you being a money magnet. Possibly spending money. Capricorns are pretty, I was going to say tight. I don't want to say tight wads, but you tend to be very conservative when it comes to money. You conserve money. I was thinking about E.F. Hutton. We don't something money, we earn it. I can't think of the first part of it. Oh, gosh. But you tend to be very conservative, conserve money, don't waste it. And yet, when you do spend money, you tend to spend it on quality items, whether it's clothing or appliances or what have you. So you're going to, not just like designer labels, it better, be backed up with quality materials. But and same with what we call luxury items. I think that Capricorns will buy things that they actually use. That's your motto. I use. So maybe this is going to be some big ticket item that you buy. You're going to have the money for it. From my lips to God's ears. Let's put it that way. On the next day, we have that solstice. I always love these power periods because there's something about it, especially, in the northern hemisphere in December, because then the sun is starting to gain ground. You know what is so bizarre? I'm just thinking about something, Capricorn. I swear it seems like just yesterday, or maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe a few weeks ago, that I was lamenting that we were starting to lose hours and lose light during the summer solstice back in June. And here we are. I'm recording this like, almost 5 months later, or just over 5 months later. That is too weird. So in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the darkest day of the year. And so then we start to come out of that. And symbolically, it's like the death of the sun, okay? So there's something really inspiring about that for me. And this is your solar return. This is when the sun is going into your sign. So you might start to feel like everything is just popping, okay? And so that's really awesome. And then a few days later, the 25th, Christmas evening, or early on the 26th. Well, if you're down under or in Europe, it might be in the morning or afternoon of the 26th. This is the solar eclipse at 4 degrees of Capricorn. I was going to say Boxing Day. I don't know if they have Boxing Day in Australia, being that you have that British connection. You might have it. I know in Canada and England and probably all the UK you have it. I didn't know because, the word boxing, I was thinking of, prize fighters. But apparently that has to do with gifts, I think. And maybe is that when you open your gifts? I'll have to check out what that's all about. But this is when it's occurring for you. Now, what's so neat about this is that it's going to be in conjunction with Jupiter. So there's an auspicious component where a lot of good vibes, a lot of good cheer, and, good juju, good energy, kind of like being in conjunction with Jupiter, blessings coming to you, but also trining with Uranus, because Uranus is at 2 degrees of Taurus at this time. By the way, I've done separate videos for every sign when it comes to the transit of Jupiter in Capricorns and how it affects you. I'll link that below. I hope I can remember to do that. So check in the description box for that. And so that's going to be very auspicious. And of course, it's a very powerful new moon. And so make your new moon wishes. Believe that. But, when I say, I do like the idea of saying intentions. I read somebody was saying something, other than saying intentions. It's not, wishes, that to me sounds a little bit too vague. Like, I hope this happens and I'm not going to have anything to do with it. It's just like, my fairy godmother comes in and grants me these wishes, rather than saying, I intend to do these things in the coming year, and that you believe that you can achieve this through your efforts, where you don't have to wait for some kind of special things happening to you, that you really feel that you can make them happen on your own. And not to say that we don't have good fortune that occurs that we don't really have a hand in. Yeah, I mean, I believe in good luck. But I don't really resonate with the idea of luck anymore. I think it's more of alignment with us feeling like we can go after what we want. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but whatever is your way of looking at things, it definitely will feel very fortunate, okay? Let's put it that way, during the solar eclipse. And then on the 28th, Mercury goes into Capricorn, your sign, and that should also be very good for you, feeling that sense of alignment, being on the same page with the way that you think, the way that you interpret things, and moving into a whole new year of 2020, and how that's going to, manifest for you. I think it's a 4 universal year. I think that's very good for Capricorn. I'm trying to remember if the number 4 is associated with Saturn. I believe it is. So that would really be in alignment with you, if so. And, well, this is bizarre. I went to this one website. I just kind of, looked up, what the number 4 represents. And they're talking about people's life path, but you can extend it to the universal year because they'll have the same components. But they were talking about the kind of worker bee energy of the number 4, and but one thing that they said, which I thought was odd, talking about astrological correspondence, is that it's not surprising to know that the planet Uranus and the astrological sign of Taurus both come under the 4's domain. 4 gives new meaning to bullheaded. Okay, well, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and it has a co-ruler of Saturn, but they're talking specifically of Uranus here. And it's a fixed sign, so it could have stubborn, but Taurus I could see being an earth sign and being the number 4, but Uranus, that's odd because Uranus is very unpredictable. So I went to another site, and it did say the number 4 is ruled by Saturn, seen as foundation, elementals of 4 winds, and the 4 seasons. So I definitely would go with that interpretation more than Uranus any day. So this should be a great, 2020 should be a great year for you, Capricorn, due to this very fact that you resonate with this kind of worker bee energy and foundations and things of that nature, and Saturn is your ruler. So I hope you have a great December and a great 2020. If you would like to look at 2020 with me using your natal chart, I have a new 2020 reading that's an extended transits reading, 70 minutes long, for a sale price, and it's I'm going to link that below, but also you can look at the Jupiter reading that I did for your sign, and have a great solar eclipse. Take care. Bye.